The reason I think it's horrible, well, where the hell do I start? You're basically asking gamers to be alpha and beta testers because that's really, having been a games tester, I know what that's about. You're also trying to access more funding for your games. And I think in an era where game developers are starting to move away from the publisher only model, I think it's a scary proposition to basically bankroll games off the backs of gamers, strictly off the backs of gamers. And anyone who's watched my videos, you know how I feel about Wasteland 2 and Brian Fargo. I'm a huge proponent and champion of Brian Fargo. I was a massive backer of the Kickstarter campaign, but I'm also completely against, absolutely against his early access release of Wasteland 2. I think it was a sellout. I think it was a means of getting more capital rather than pulling a Tim Schafer and coming out and just speaking the truth. You know, In Exile went the... I feel that they went the dishonest route and basically drummed up more money using Steam's early access. But that's my opinion. You guys may not agree, and fair enough. We're entitled to our opinions. Which brings me back to Elder Scrolls Online. I started playing MMOs, I guess, MUDs, you could say, is where I really started. Ultima Online, I was there for the launch of that. I was beta and opening release of EverQuest. I've tried Dark Age of Camelot. Really, over a dozen MMOs, including WoW, which I still play. So as far as Elder Scrolls, I love the Elder Scrolls series. I've played Daggerfall, I played Morrowind, the original Arena, you know, Oblivion, Skyrim, of course. And what's immediately evident with Elder Scrolls Online is it's not the Skyrim guys, it's ZeniMax. And I don't have a hell of a lot of confidence in ZeniMax. They have a track record of abandoning their MMOs. You know, they're always looking for that next hit, and as soon as it seems that the current game they're working on isn't the next big hit, it seems like they're ready to abandon ship and move on to the next one. And fair enough, it's a business, right? That's what they do. They're in it to make money, but I'd almost be more comfortable with something as beloved and cherished to me as the Elder Scrolls lore and canon and universe is to be a better caretaker than that. So hopefully they prove me wrong. And I know, Christ, I'm starting out the episode here really negative. Look, I wish them the best. I love the subscriber-only model. I think that's the way to do it rather than free-to-play. But it doesn't feel like Elder Scrolls to me. And really, you can't out-WoW. WoW. A lot of games have tried. And I think when you go that route, rather than carve out your own identity, you're almost doomed to failure. And I think that's what's happened to so many MMOs. Instead of trying to carve out their own niche, like Eve. Look at Eve, another game I play. Terrific. You almost never hear about it in the news, and yet they've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They have a dev team that is dedicated, and that's probably the most important thing. When I talked about the proper caretakers, Eve Online is one of those games that you know it's being taken care of. So, Elder Scrolls, 5 million subscribers, great. But you know what? I've seen it before, whether it's Lord of the Rings MMO or Conan. I've seen this before. Millions of subscribers, then comes launch. There's not enough end game content because the devs focused on the beginning part. The hardcore guys lose faith, etc., etc., etc. 6 to 12 months later, people start abandoning ship. So let's hope that's not the case. Next, what's next? Final Fantasy XIV. Let's talk about Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV is another MMO that is using the subscriber model, which I think is great. It comes from a proven lineage of games. Final Fantasy XI had long-term support, which I think is fantastic. I love the Final Fantasy games. Not a huge fan of the online game. Tried Final Fantasy XIV on the PC. I thought it was fun. But again, it comes back to you can't out-WoW WoW, because there is a WoW already. And I think so much could have been done with Final Fantasy to basically carve out its own identity. I don't think they did that. I think they just copycatted WoW, really, and the folks at Blizzard. So there you have it. Anyways, the article I read on ours today was about how stunning the game looks on the PlayStation 4, which is to be expected. It's beautiful 1080p, super long draw distance, kind of approaching the PC in terms of looks, which again is only natural when you compare it to something like the PS3 version, which you're going to expect is going to have some drawbacks, and they're going to have to cut back on details, and it's no PC and it's no PS4. But with that said, it looks fantastic. It looks great. If anybody out there watching this has played the PS4 version of Final Fantasy XIV beta, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. And here's an awesome game, Goat Simulator. Now, one of my favorite things was playing Surgeon Simulator. The one where you've got the one hand, and it kind of reminds me, and this is really dating me, but the old Carol Burnett skit. And if you haven't seen this, look it up. Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. And Tim Conway plays just the most fucking inept dentist on the planet. He, sticks himself with the needle and basically goes into Surgeon Simulator on Harvey Korman, who plays the patient. Just fucking brilliant. Comedy at its best. Look it up. And that's what that game reminds me of. And it's the same vein of humor that Goat Simulator's going for, is just the absurd. And being a huge fan of all things bovine and goats and yaks, and Jeff Minter is one of my favorite developers of all time, and I'm really curious what his thoughts are on this game. Granted, it's goats, I know, but still, that it just looks like it would be right down his alley. Just some of the stuff that you have to do with your goat, like the headbutts and the jumping on the on the trampoline, they're kick-ass. I mean, it looks fun as hell. It's $10 on Steam. I gotta admit, I think it was Melanie Mack and some other people online. I watched the videos of them playing it. Boogie was another one, and it's definitely one I'll be picking up. But I got so much on the go. I'm still playing Dark Souls 2. I'm still playing Diablo 3. I've got a playthrough of that I'm busy uploading and playing to create content for. So it's going to have to go on the back burner, but it looks hilarious. Now, not gaming related, not really tech related, but geek related, and this is the home of the elitist geek, Game of Thrones Season 4. Now, one of the things that has me concerned, and I know tons of fans are concerned about this. Excuse me one sec, guys. Lots of guys are concerned about this. Is George R. Martin. I mean, he's a little older. He's a bit overweight, let's face it. Let's be honest here. And if anybody out there is familiar with the Wheel of Time series, it was by an author, Robert Jordan, who I believe was from Texas or somewhere down south. Anyways, not important, but it was over a dozen books in length, and he had told his fans he would be around and don't worry. And anyways, unfortunately, he passed away before the series could finish. They pulled in another author, and of course his name, even though he's got a series that I'm reading right now, Sam, it's escaping me, but anyways, not important. He finished the Wheel of Time series. So a lot of people with George R. R. Martin, it's like, okay, dude, we're almost to the point where the books and the series are neck and neck, right? We've got the 4th season, and he's only written X number of books. And it seems like anytime you go to the guy's website, he's off touring the world, doing book signings, being on talk shows, and giving interviews, instead of, writing a book. the next one. Now, apparently he's told HBO the plot line, he's summarized it for him, so if something should happen to him and he passes away like Robert Jordan does, and he's reassured his fans that, that's all in place, not to worry. Okay, fine, but we'd rather have you finish it, George. So, anyways, season 4 starts tonight. Can't wait. It should kick ass. I love the casting. Peter Dinklage, one of my favorite actors, and what a perfect casting job. Not just for Peter Dinklage. And you could say, oh yeah, well, Epyx, you're just saying that because he's a little person. No, I know lots of little people actors. I mean, look at Warwick. Could you see him do that role? No. Lots of little people actors just wouldn't fit. They'd really have to stretch the role to come even close to what Peter Dinklage has been able to do. It's almost as if Tyrion was written for Peter Dinklage. And to me, it's just awesome fucking casting, and we are so fortunate to have him in that role. And same with a lot of the other actors. I think one thing that they have done very well on Game of Thrones is casting. They haven't always followed the book, like the Red Wedding, they took some liberties. The basic plots, yes, they're the same, but where they did nail it is casting. There's not one character in the book that I've seen on screen that doesn't kind of jive up with what I imagine that character would be, right? So, again, my opinion. Let me know your thoughts. ISP bandwidth on net index. And I've just got a little note pad up here on Word just of the topics that I was going to talk about, because I try to do these things in one take on my vlogs. I don't want these heavily edited. This isn't about being pretty. It's about being real and speaking the news and talking about what's up and what's on my mind. So this was a website, and you can go to netindex.com. That's netindex.com. I'll put the link below. And it rates ISP bandwidths around the world and your average, so the average global, and then the average of the city that you happen to live in. And my city is up there. Yours would be up there if you check. And having just recently upgraded, and I've always had that conflict with ISPs. To me, I was an early adopter. I was in the triple digits on ADSL when it came out. And speed is important to me. But in this day and age, even more important, so much more important than speed, is bandwidth. You can have all the speed in the world, but if you chew through it within the first week, and then you're capped for the next 3 weeks in the month, that speed did you absolutely no fucking good. If I had 2 ISPs and one offered me 200 megabits download, and the other only offered me 50 megabit, but the one that was 50 megabit said, okay, you know what, you've got 750 gigs, oh hell, for the example, 750 gigs to a terabyte download, or you get your 200 megabit speed, but you're capped at 300 gigs. I'm going to go for the 750 to terabyte every single time, because I can burn through that 200 megabits probably within a week or two. I download a lot of digital content. I'm a Steam user, so you think I format my PCs. I don't immediately re-up everything on my Steam list, but certainly my top 10% games, I like to have them on hand. Well, boom, that's an instant, 100, 150 gigs. Then throw in my PlayStation 3, my PlayStation 4, my Xbox One, my 3DS even, and my Vita, and you're talking a lot of digital content. We stream Netflix here in this house. I stream my hockey. So when all's said and done, bandwidth every single time. And what got me on that kick to find that website was how far we've lagged here in North America. Now, again, I'm in Canada, I'm on the West Coast, and even though I was an early adopter of high-speed bandwidth, throughout the late 90s, I would say, and early aughts, North America was still more or less on top. You would always hear about people in Asia and people in Europe bitching about their bandwidth. A lot of them still had dial-ups, or they were being charged too much for their bandwidth. Things weren't moving along fast enough. And I gotta say, honestly, it's almost reversed. Asia and Europe enjoy much better bandwidth on average, and again, go to the net index and it'll show you that, than we do here in North America. I mean, to think that in 2014 there's still places in North America where you're almost better off having dial-up because the cable modem or ADSL options that they have are so pitiful or so strictly capped, that's just ludicrous. Like, in this day and age, like, that should be a focus of local government. It's so important, not just to us gamers, selfishly, right? But to the economy, to home business, to enterprise businesses, medium, mom and pops. We need bandwidth. And if we're ever going to have a hope in hell of digital distribution taking off, and I had a video about, how Steam and Gabe Newell stealthily introduced us, right? By pacing the adoption rate, where all of a sudden, PC gamers like me who love having their boxed game and we're anti-digital distribution, we're all of a sudden okay with it. I mean, 90% of my gaming purchases are digital. I still buy original 3DS. I still prefer to have a cartridge, but I've completely come around in terms of digital distribution on my PC. All my PC games now are pretty much Steam. PS4, it's going to get to that point, but I still buy the media, and it's inevitable. They will eventually move to digital distribution. The ISPs cannot be this far behind. Get your acts together, guys. North American ISPs, get your shit together. Deliver the bandwidth and speeds that we need. It's freaking 2014, right? Come on. And then finally, what I want to talk about is Xbox One Entertainment getting the go-ahead. Now, this story goes back to when I was a kid, all right? I was there. I lusted after the Atari 2600. I was a huge arcade geek, and friends of mine had an Atari 2600, and unfortunately we were too poor. We could never afford one. So I hung out at friends' house and, played there, played the ColecoVision and television. And I remember the crash of '83. There were so many video games being made that quality assurance basically fell to the wayside. It was all about pumping out games fast, in high volume, and basically flooding the market. It was almost like a greedy gold rush. And all standards basically went out the window. And games were being released at a, crazy pace, and they were shit. I mean, we had some bad ports on the Atari. Like, you compare ColecoVision Donkey Kong, which is almost arcade perfect, to the gingerbread Donkey Kong that you get on the Atari 2600, and it's, amazing, one step away from arcade to herpaderp. I mean, it's that bad, right? E.T. was one such game too, and I know there's probably people watching this that, oh, Epyx, what are you talking about? E.T. was a good game. No, it wasn't. The dev had 5.5 weeks to cram that piece of shit into a box and get it out the door. The game suffered for it. It sucked. And that's how the whole urban legend started about the ET cartridges being buried in a landfill. There are newspaper articles, there are, video news reports of when this actually happened, and hundreds of people. Like, you can go to the Atari forums, and I kid you not, there are threads dealing on this that are thousands of pages deep. People who've tried to go to New Mexico to the landfill. They've, gone as far and as elaborate to creating GPS coordinates showing where that landfill would be today and how close it is to a freeway. And the Angry Video Game Nerd, he's based a movie on it. Well, Xbox One recently tried to film a dig to find these Atari carts. They were denied. They've just had that lifted, and they're able to resume digging and filming the dig. So for a guy like me who's heard about the mythical Atari 2600 ET landfill since I was 10, 11 years old, I'm really freaking curious to see what's buried there, because I know it wasn't just cartridges apparently. It was hardware and just lots of peripherals and games, so that should be really cool. And I'm sure the people in New Mexico are just saying, oh God, no, not this again, because, again, go to the Atari forums. I'm sure you can search it in Google. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but people have tried calling. They've tried to get permits. I mean, this has been going on for decades. So anyways, guys, quite a few topics there. Let me know what your thoughts are, whether you agree, disagree. I'm interested in hearing all sides. Like if you like this. Again, this is my weekly vlog where I just ramble about stuff, tech stuff that's relevant the last week to me. And subscribe if this is the kind of thing that you want to see moving forward. Again, I do game reviews, anime, anything geek related, but mostly tech and gaming. As always, cheers, guys.